I often start these videos by citing Gizmodo when they uncovered widespread bias against conservatives on Facebook. But there have been many stories proving the bias is real, notably Project Veritas leaking those emails that showed they said certain conservative figures were certain kind of far-right bad people, if you know what I mean. People within these companies are absolutely biased, and this is having a negative impact on politics. We're now learning that it actually runs deeper than that. You see, CBS News 60 Minutes did a sit-down with YouTube. I believe the interview was woefully inadequate, but what they found, 300 plus Trump ads were taken down by Google and YouTube, mostly over the summer, for violating company policy. After everything we've heard from Veritas and from Gizmodo and even Recode, who said from Twitter's CEO Jack Dorsey, many of their conservative employees are scared to speak up. We heard something similar from conservative employees at Facebook. We know that there is an internal bias. Does it mean the whole company hates people? No, but it means their rules are likely misapplied or more heavily applied to people on the right. Sure enough, we find that Trump ads are being taken down, but what's more worrying is we don't know why. You see, even CBS acknowledges there's not much transparency in their transparency report. And while they're trying to claim there's no bias against conservatives, sure enough, we see this happening to Trump. So I decided to look into it. I looked up a few other political campaigns, and sure enough, Elizabeth Warren, Joe Biden, Pete Buttigieg, I didn't find any policy violations. There's probably some in there somewhere, but I very easily found the policy violations for Donald Trump's campaign, and unsurprisingly, also Bernie Sanders. You might not be a fan of either Trump or Bernie, but I think we can all realize the populist individuals are facing a bias. I certainly think, based on what I found, the bias against Trump is more substantial. But we even heard recently that Barack Obama was secretly talking about speaking up against Bernie Sanders. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, the bias from big tech is extremely dangerous. We don't know why these companies are restricting political ads. Now, again, I'll stress, most of the ads appear to be fine, but we don't know what their criteria is for taking this information down. To make matters worse, Google has been swayed before by fake news. So here's what I'll do. Let's take a look at the story from CBS. But I want to show you exactly why it's so dangerous these private companies are reacting to fake news and blocking politics. I think most of us can get it. We shouldn't have unaccountable corporations dictating what we can see and hear, but that's where we're going. I mean, I get it. We were there kind of in the past when we didn't have social media. We broke through certain barriers. Let's not regress. But there's another story here that's also alarming. Facebook removes 7 UK Tory party ads after BBC complaint. The BBC was upset that Brexit ads had content from the BBC. They called it inaccurate or misleading. So Facebook actually took it down. That to me is particularly worrisome. You know, there's a lot to go through here. It's not just about the ads being taken down, but we know that media is biased. We know that in this new world of Twitter saying no political ads and Facebook saying yes any ads and Google taking down Trump, the left plans to slip vote swaying news into Facebook feeds. Now, it's just one political operative, but it exists. The fake news is going to sway these media companies using the guise of credibility, and then you are going to see your favorite politician removed. And let me remind you, to those who are conservative, you're probably saying, yeah, what else is new? We know this is happening. But there are many people on the left saying, oh, please, it's not true. Well, it's happening to Bernie Sanders. So maybe if you took the time to wake up and realize these establishment players, this fake news is not pro-Bernie. This is I believe this person worked for Obama. This is establishment players. These are people, this is Obama who said he would speak up to stop Bernie Sanders. If you are someone who finds yourself on the left or the right, you better recognize this problem is coming for you regardless. Many people on the left want to point the finger at Trump supporters and say, too bad, it's a private company. Well, it's hitting Bernie all the same. It's hitting Tulsi and it's hitting Andrew Yang. We can see how the bias works. So let's talk about what's going on. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com/donate if you would like to support my work. There's a PayPal option, a crypto option, a physical address. But of course, the best thing you can do, share this video. Listen, man, these big media companies, they are not playing fair. MSNBC is keeping Yang out of the game. We can see how they smear Trump all day and night. It doesn't matter where you are on the political spectrum. We know that when YouTube sees the fake news and they come for us, particularly in response to stories like this from 60 Minutes, they knock us down and they prop up MSNBC and Fox News. And if you're on the left and you don't like Fox News, fine, but recognize that MSNBC was keeping Yang out as well, and he demanded an apology. We need to support independent content. If you like what I do, then please consider sharing this video to help combat this fake news. Let's read what CBS said. They go on to talk about political ads on social media. Yeah, we get all that stuff. Compared to TV ads, they say online ads can spread lies at an alarming rate. Yet, welcome to the internet. That's always been true. It's called new technology. But here's what they find. In October, responding to a groundswell of concern, Twitter announced it would ban political advertising on its platform. Google and its subsidiary YouTube do not ban these ads, but the company last month came out with adjustments and clarifications to its policy, including limited micro-targeting of users. I can understand why that might make sense. Some people are concerned that if you get a specific ad that caters to you specifically, and someone else gets a different ad, sounds like politicians are double dipping and don't have a cohesive plan. They're just manipulating you. But here's what they say. In response to concerns raised with the 2016 election cycle, Google and YouTube, like Facebook, keep a searchable archive of political ads that have run on the site. 60 Minutes reviewed the archive to learn more about President Trump's problematic political ads. Problematic, that's a bit opinionated. We found that over 300 video ads were taken down by Google and YouTube, mostly over the summer, for violating company policy. But the archive doesn't detail what policy was violated. Was it copyright violation, a lie, or extreme inaccuracy, faulty grammar, bad punctuation? It's unclear. The ads determined to be offending are not available to be screened. We found very little transparency in the transparency report. Now, you might think Trump's ads are problematic and you don't like the guy, but I gotta say, isn't it a bit disconcerting that YouTube isn't telling us why these ads are taken down? And again, I will stress, Bernie Sanders, Tulsi Gabbard also have the same problem. Trump seems to be getting it much, much worse. I very easily found several policy violations under Trump's campaigns, multiple ones, because there's a pack, I believe. For Bernie, I found a couple. For Tulsi, I found one. But for the establishment players, for Biden, for Buttigieg, for Harris, I found none. And for Warren. But sure, maybe their ads are just, innocuous. Maybe Trump really did something wrong. We just don't know. And I'm not going to sit back and say, it's fine that a bunch of establishment Democrats have no removals, but Bernie Sanders and Trump do. Something doesn't feel right. And regardless of whether or not the removals were fair, they should tell us why. When CNN took down Donald Trump's, refused to air 2 Trump campaign ads, just 2, they said it was because they were inaccurate. That's CNN's opinion. Trump was accusing Biden of corruption, and the New York Times and CNN say there's no evidence to suggest, okay, fine, full stop. There is evidence to suggest there's potential wrongdoing here. We know Hunter Biden had no reason to be on that board. We know from sworn affidavits in Ukraine that there was an investigation. You can distrust them. That's okay. But to act like Trump isn't entitled to his opinion is absurd. But CNN is different. First, they're one network. If someone came to my channel and said, Tim, we want you to run these ads, and I said, no, it's my business. CNN can do what they want. More importantly, CNN told us why, and now we know. They disagreed with the framing. They view it as inaccurate. I think you can argue it's inaccurate, but that's still just an opinion. At the end of the day, thank you, CNN, for at least telling us. We can then discuss the merit of the issue. But at least CNN did that, and it was only 2. When it comes to Google, we don't know what's going on. And so this is what was asked. As you know, conservatives think that you discriminate against them. Stahl tells YouTube's Wojcicki, I believe that's how you pronounce it, who replies, well, first of all, there are lots of very successful conservative creators on YouTube. Our systems, our algorithms, they don't have any concept of understanding what's a Democrat, what's a Republican. They don't have any concept of political bias built in them in any way. And we do hear this criticism from all sides. We also have people who come from more liberal backgrounds who complain about discrimination. And so I think that no matter who you are, we are trying to enforce our policies in a consistent way for everybody. The archive does detail how many days the ad ran on the platform before it was taken down, approximately how much Google was paid, and how many impressions it received. Now, I will say, to CNN's credit, it is true that creators on the left do receive problems as well. When YouTube bent over backwards to fake news about the rabbit hole, and I'll say too, she's wrong about, YouTube not being biased. They are biased, but they still negatively impact the left in similar ways. A fake story from the New York Times claimed there's a rabbit hole, that if you watch the intellectual dark web, all of a sudden you'll be at the alt-right. It's just not true. It is not true because YouTube doesn't understand the difference between pro or anti-immigration. It doesn't. If you put immigration in the tag, YouTube sees it as the same thing. If people are choosing to watch anti, that's something they're putting in their search and gravitating towards certain content. YouTube doesn't know the difference. They don't score things as left to right. So it stands to reason that if you watch videos just about immigration, you will get more left than right because there are more left-wing channels. More importantly, in response to that fake news, channels like mine and David Pakman took major hits. YouTube knocked us down in support for mainstream news. So then here's the problem. First, CNN can reject Trump all they want, fine, but they're wrong about saying it's inaccurate. But what happens when that news actually results in political ads being removed because Facebook bends the knee? Facebook removed 7 UK Tory party ads after BBC complaint. I'll tell you what the ads basically were, as I understand them. Like most political ads, they take a snippet of a news bit where someone says something like corruption, and they put it in. In this instance, you had BBC journalists saying another delay to Brexit, another delay to Brexit. And apparently the Tory party was making a point about Brexit being pushed back. Not that the BBC was saying anything other than these things were happening. They were showing the news clips. The BBC complains, Facebook takes them down. Why? They claim it was misleading, but I thought Facebook doubled down, saying that they were going to allow these ads. Apparently not. So this is the problem. The BBC intervened to get a political ad removed. Come on, man. Look, I get it. There's going to be a lot of people who hate Brexit, who are Remainers, who are going to be cheering for this. But let me remind you. Let me show you some stuff. This is, I believe, what do we have here? This is Donald Trump, I think we have here. Yes. Here's Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders has 2 ads that were removed only last week, published on the 20th. Now, here's what you can see. The ads all tend to be the same. We can see in this section, there's 4 ads. 2 of them are the same ad, and 1 in the middle was removed for a violation. Why? Is it possible that ad is the same as the other 2? It's in between 2 identical ads. I want to know why that Bernie Sanders ad was taken down. It was taken down after 2 days while the others remained up. Even if it's YouTube arbitrarily just pulling something down and the video is identical, it stands to reason that YouTube taking these things down is a negative impact on their campaigns because it restricts the views they can reach. We don't know why. And when we look, it just says policy violation. They say that he spent between 1,000 and 50,000. We don't know why it was removed. And it's possible that YouTube took it down because they're biased. And you got to recognize it. Look, so let me do this. Here's a list of the political ad spends on Google, through Google. We can see that California spends a ton of money. Florida gets the biggest spends, $13 million. $131 million spent since May 31st. The biggest spender is the Trump Make America Great Again committee. And boy, that's $8 million. Sure enough, when you look at their biggest spends, we can see that immediately in their top 8, there's a policy violation. We don't know why it was taken down. We can scroll down and we can see there's many more. I'm not going to dig through all these. I did look at Warren and Buttigieg and others, and sure enough, I didn't find any. But Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, I did. If they are taking down ads arbitrarily to just restrict how much reach they can get, or to restrict the more effective ads, we don't know why. Okay, it's going to be bad for either of them. And I got to say, man, we know the bias is real. It's not, look, I think the bias is much heavier towards the Republicans. I can very easily find the violations that Trump has received and the 300 plus ads. It's all very easily there. Plus, we see what BBC did with Brexit, but it's going to hit you on the left. MSNBC is biased against, Andrew Yang. And it's frustrating for me to see so many establishment, left-wing journalists praising this stuff. You know who else got their ads suspended? And this should be more worrying. Is Project Veritas. Their Twitter ads, their ads were banned from Twitter for inappropriate content. But what does that mean? Newsbusters reports. Project Veritas reported that its accounts on Twitter ads was suspended permanently for inappropriate content. In a video posted to Twitter, the organization's founder, James O'Keefe, explained how the censorship occurred. Twitter recently banned all political ads except for cause-based ads from nonprofit and for-profit organizations. The SPLC, for example, can still run ads on Twitter, but, some conservative sites have not fared as well as the SPLC. Here's what I don't want. I don't want to live in a future where massive multinational corporations decide what we're allowed to see and hear. We had that in the past with the consolidation of these media companies, CNN, NBC, ABC, whatever. They would keep people out. And you would then only see establishment players. What are we seeing now with the DNC primary? They're still trying to do the same thing. The DNC says these are the only acceptable media outlets and pollsters. So when people like Tulsi do well in the polls, they say no. But now I want to drive it home for you. I'm sure there's a lot of people on the left who are just cheering about Trump getting his ads taken down, saying he probably deserved it. Remember when Elizabeth Warren had her Facebook ads removed because she was challenging Mark Zuckerberg? I'm not a big fan of Warren, but I will give her credit for saying we got to do something about these big tech companies. Now she's calling for breaking them up. I don't know if it's the right thing to do. At least it's an idea. Andrew Yang is talking about different ideas, saying that might not work. But sure enough, Elizabeth Warren published ads criticizing Facebook, and Facebook took the ads down. Isn't that alarming? Let me ask you this. Do you want to live in a world where you can't criticize a major corporation? You can't do anything about it? Facebook is where people are sharing information. Twitter is where people are sharing information. And if you can't speak there, your voice is dramatically reduced. Now, I get it. In the past, we had to go to the local media, we had to go to the water cooler, and if we wanted to spread ideas, we have to go and talk to each other about it. But this kind of communication is being taken over by these tech platforms, by Twitter, by Google, by Facebook. And if they start banning speech they don't like, Elizabeth Warren will not be elected. Mark Zuckerberg has already come out. There's already been a leak. I believe it was a leak audio where Zuckerberg's criticizing Elizabeth Warren. She's a threat to him. Do you think Zuckerberg is going to allow her to win and then break up Facebook? Absolutely not. And I'll tell you this. Mark Zuckerberg came out and he recently had a dinner, I believe, with Trump. The left is all freaking out about it. I think the reason Mark Zuckerberg has come out more so in favor of, I'll do air quotes, free speech, and I say more so, not completely, is because he knows where his bread is going to be buttered. Right now, you've got Donald Trump in office, and conservatives are complaining about the political censorship on these platforms. If Elizabeth Warren wins, Facebook's in big trouble. If Donald Trump wins, the conservatives will likely respect the private entity insofar as they allow free speech. So Mark Zuckerberg probably realized he's on the losing end of both arguments. The left wants to ban hate speech. What can he do? That's a step too far. I mean, he does, for the most part, ban hate speech, but they want more. Remove this person, remove that person. They'll never stop. So when he comes out and says we have limits, they say, fine, we will break up Facebook. In a panic, Mark Zuckerberg goes and meets up with some conservatives and Trump, and now he's saying, you know what? Maybe we should respect some of that the good old free expression. Even though Facebook has taken moves to censor conservatives, as we saw from the Gizmodo story, which I want to cite, we can now see Mark Zuckerberg knows who is going to butter his bread. And there's a lot of people who are pushing these ideas, about it's about stopping people from manipulating. You know what, man? Political ads have always been manipulations. And we've always respected the right of people to have hyperbolic speech. Thinking back, I saw a Twitter thread recently about the 90s where when a controversial issue would arise, they'd bring it on TV on purpose. Larry King would have tons of extremely offensive people on his show to talk about these ideas, to challenge them, to work them out. And sure enough, today, you can't do that. And as the media becomes more and more corrupt, these tech companies bend over backwards for fake news, and we are in serious trouble. Right now, the best line of defense we have against the establishment players keeping out anyone who the American people might want is an alternative and independent media. It's independent commentary, channels like mine, and even channels from more progressive creators. It's better that we have a large array of different kinds of political commentary, from libertarian to socialist to laissez-faire capitalist, anarcho-capitalist to conservative to moderate, etc. We have all of these voices, and we can share these ideas, and we can, it's the marketplace of ideas. They can succeed or fail based on their merits. But we now have a media that is trying to exploit the platforms themselves into censoring information. When they realized they couldn't shut down our ideas, they went straight to the platform. And what happens? Well, on the surface, you'll find a lot of people on the left cheering that Donald Trump's ads are being removed. But let me remind you, Yang is excluded from the media, Tulsi is, and Bernie Sanders as well. So there may be big disagreements politically between all of these different, bases. But I'll at least tell you, the only people cheering for this are the establishment Democrats, the people who want Biden to win, who for some reason, So let me show you something. The media is toxic, okay? A woman wrote a story about Donald Trump's Thanksgiving Day a day before Thanksgiving. How could that possibly be reality if the day didn't even happen yet? Well, she got fired. But guess what? The only reason she got fired was because regular people on social media kept pointing out she wrote, it was a pre-write. She wrote it early. It was fake news. And because of that, she was held accountable. Do you think these companies like the fact that regular people know before they can publish that we can share information faster and better, and we were right and they were wrong? They want to claim that the internet is spreading fake news like wildfire. It's also spreading the truth like wildfire, and these media companies have put out fake news in the past, and now we're correcting them. What happens when these ads are getting removed, when these companies are biased and say, I don't care if you're Trump or Bernie, we're not letting you through? Then these fake stories will persist, and your ideas will not. So I'll tell you this, man. The problem with the conservatives is that too many of them say, we shouldn't interfere with a private company. They can do what they want. I kid you not. Many of the arguments I've heard, they say we shouldn't impose new laws on these companies. It's a slippery slope. The left says the same thing. Why? Well, the left typically is in favor of regulation, but they're winning. They're benefiting from this. Unless you're a Bernie Sanders supporter or, Yang or Tulsi. If you support an outsider, you're in trouble. So, you know what? You get the point. I'll leave it there. I think if you're on the left, the problem is they're too happy celebrating that Trump is the one getting the brunt of this. The right too often says we shouldn't interfere in a private business. But I tell you what, both the left and the right will regret it if they don't stand up right now and demand better transparency as to why these ads were removed. And I will end with two final thoughts. The first, it is entirely possible the ads were removed simply for punctuation. I kid you not. Some of the rules are like you can't be all caps. Maybe. But I'm curious as to why when it comes to Bernie Sanders ads, you can see that he ran 3 ads. 2, the first and the last are the same, and the one in the middle was banned. Why is that? Why is that? So it could be something innocuous. It could be something, who cares? But I'd like to know why. Because I want to know if Google is biased. I honestly believe they are. And, the reason I'm citing Bernie specifically is to drive the point home to those on the left. This is hitting your candidate. You've ignored the bias for too long, and it's coming for you next. It's the point that everyone has been trying to make. First, they'll start banning Trump, and you will cheer. And then once you do, they will snip out your candidate. The last thing I will add, and this is not a paid sponsorship or anything, minds.com/pro, minds.com has launched a new monetization pro platform. You can monetize your content on Minds. I know that Minds is not nearly as lucrative with as big an audience as YouTube, but listen, there's a YouTube union challenging what YouTube is doing. I don't think they'll win. What's going to win is competition. If more and more people sign up for Minds and upload videos to Minds and try to and make money through their monetization program, and yes, Minds monetization is actually on par with YouTube average. There's just not as many viewers, so you got to work really hard. But listen, if we start diversifying and supporting other platforms that have a monetization program, and I don't think there's anything else, like Minds.com literally is paying like YouTube does. They're competing directly with their partner program. Then YouTube will be forced to accept these changes and stop the bias. But I'll leave it there. Stick around. Next segment's coming up at 6 p.m. at youtube.com/TimCastNews. Thanks for hanging out. I will see you all there.